Today I am talking about Small Gods by Pratchett, book 13 in the Discworld, and another classic, brilliant Terry Pratchett novel. But this one, we're going to get into some stuff here, and as the name implies, it's not a small subject. And if you understand Terry Pratchett's writing and his satires and the way he looks at the world, yeah, there's not a simple subject. You know, fantasy gods and that play a big role in different levels for quite a lot of fantasy. You know, there's whole books built around them, you know, like the Malazan with the god system and things like that. There's others that are just this presence, and others that, you know, they're the main characters and stuff like that. But Terry Pratchett's, the way he shows a light on the world in, you know, subtle subtext with his books, that's what we get here. And we start with an eagle and a tortoise. Not a lot can eat a tortoise, despite the fact that there's good eating in a tortoise. But an eagle has figured out how to get around that hard shell. Is basically to snatch one up, take it up into the sky, and drop it down, and let the rocks below, you know, smash the gooey parts out. And like we said, and like the book says, there's good eating in one of those, quite a lot. This one particular tortoise just happens to be the god Omnia, trapped in this almost pathetic form of a desert tortoise. Because basically his believers have stopped believing in him. Even though he has a massive following, they've actually stopped believing in him, and they're believing in the sort of more in the religion, I suppose you'd say, or more in their leaders. And that's sort of what Terry does to you. And that, you know, you can see it in modern religions, in our religions, and in our faith systems. We sometimes get away from God's message, and I did warn you that I was going to get into this one a little bit. I think I warned you. In my head I warned you. But we're going to get into this one a little bit. And that's where we are in society. And I think you see, you know, that you put so much faith in systems of religion as opposed to faith in God and faith in humanity. And that's really the message of this one. What I perceive the message in. You know, I don't want to talk about certain orange people in America right now, but, you know, they're claiming that they're of people of faith and of Christianity and thing, and you're not. They're not, you know. They've built this system around themselves, and, you know, you see, and not just that one, you see other religious leaders and that, they're so tied up in their self-doctrine on, I don't know, profiting off people's faith, that they've actually stepped away from, like, the purity of it. And I think that's what this book really does tell you. But poor brother, or is a novice, or novice brother, he's not quite yet brother, he's a believer, he's a true believer, and so of course he can hear the god Omnia, and basically he's the next disciple of the god Om. But you know, he's a very young pious man, because it was beaten into him with a stick by his grandma. And, you know, there was no mistaking that grandma or mother, there was no mistaking he had to be a very pious young man. The trouble with Omnia is they're bastards. You know, they live out in the desert. You know, they're kind of they're really this savage doctrination. You know, they've attacked their neighbours multiple times. They're fire and brimstone of their rhetoric, and, you know, everything is against the god Omnia. You know, all this modern technology, and so they want to go and check out the Ephebians. And in walks one of the most brilliant Terry Pratchett characters. And really, if he was in another fantasy world, he would be the bastard of bastards of all time. He's that malicious and that evil. Vorbis is sort of the head of the church, and they've got the Inquisition, and, you know, they're genuinely evil person, he actually picks up the god, and he's a, supposedly, the leader of the church and of the religion, actually picks up the god, which is a tortoise, turns him on his back, not satisfied with that, puts pebbles beside him to stop him rolling over, just to see what happens. Like that's the level of nastiness that this guy is. And like I said, if he was in a grimdark fantasy or an epic fantasy, he would be the biggest bastard you've ever read about. And he's still pretty close in Terry Pratchett, but Terry Pratchett can have fun with it. So where others I think can have fun with it, but yeah, it's not on that quirky level. And yeah, so we go really into this quirky world and it's really like what religion does and represses. You think about the burning of the great libraries and that in the Christian Reformation back in the day. The stiltedness of what religious marches and movements did in our history to stop knowledge, and they're in that sinister sort of time, and they're going over to Phobia, which is sort of like an ancient Greece, where there's philosophers and knowledge is valued, but of course it's all blasphemy to the Omnians, and the level. They're going over to negotiate peace, but they've already sent their armies through the desert. And the way he does that, the maliciousness of getting his army through the desert, the desert's supposed to be the great saviour. You can't get through the desert. The way Vorbis gets his troops through the desert is genuine genius, but it also takes a twisted mind to that level of maliciousness to get there. I won't tell you how they do it, because I try to always avoid spoilers, and as these book reviews, I've said it before, are always a delicate blend of trying to encourage you to read it, trying to tell you why you should read it without telling you everything, so you still want to read it. That's how I operate. And yeah, brother, he's good. He's a pious man, but when he starts getting spoken to by his god, he obviously questions it, because it's a tortoise. It's the god Omni is supposed to be a great big bull or an eagle or something massive and fear-worthy, and because that's how certain gods are portrayed, as these omnipotent beings of rage and punishment, and that's how it's certainly been manipulated in this book. But the god has no clue about any of this. Like, he might have said this, he might have said that, I don't remember this. They're doing all these things in his name, and he has no truck with it. He's no memory of it, because gods in the Discworld are self-indulgent, very self-indulgent creatures, and they don't care about the little people. And that's another thing. You have to be someone of truer faith, and I think a lot of people who are atheists or even subscribe to a religion, and that, where does their faith really lie, and that's another subtle thing. And it's, I don't know, if you know sort of my recent life journey, which I won't get into here, this book is kind of confronting. It's because it really makes you look at things and question things, and I think that's why we read. That's why we read books that are different, quirky, weird, magical, fun. Terry Pratchett still always has you thinking, always has you questioning things, but he just does it in a subtle, clever way by putting oddbods and gods into tortoise bodies and things like that. But that's the point of books, is to open our eyes to new experiences, even whimsical, magical fun like the Discworld. You should be always reading and changing your thoughts, changing your ideas, updating new knowledge. But yeah, the question was whether or not the gods really care about us, and that's one, and I would say they do. The God cares about us, but in this, do the gods care about? And there's a bit of you know, it's a theme throughout a few of his books that, you know, the gods just play with our lives and that. And if you lack faith, I think, you know, it's easy to see that and it's easy to believe that. And when I read it years ago, you know, because as I've said about the Discworld, I read them years ago, and then I've been enjoying the new audio books and coming back and talking to you guys. I really had no room for religion, so and my life's sort of been opened up and changed, and that's my journey. That's nothing to do with anyone else, and you know. But yeah, I always liked the idea of faith. I thought, sort of admired it in people that had it, but didn't feel a need to repress it onto anyone else. I thought, you know, that's you, you do you. Let us all do each other. Yeah. Maybe not like that. You know, let's all do our own journey. Yours is yours if that's one thing you need, but it wasn't for me. And but yeah, I've been on a different journey, and yeah, so this one to listen back to is a bit confronting. Not in a bad way, but it just really makes you open your eyes, and it's what true faith is and what true, you know, when you get past. The other thing about Brutha is he has this perfect memory, so, you know, when he can recite things, and basically how he saves the Great Library when they're in the Ephebians, and all this knowledge and all this philosophy, and, you know, what is a philosopher? Someone who managed to find a job without requiring manual labour or something like that. You know, it's that. And how to become a philosopher? Well, you need a loofah and a bath. I don't get that reference. The philosophers are in the bath, and when genius strikes, I don't know if that's a thing in history that supposedly, you know, Archimedes or someone had that moment of brilliance in a bath or something. I don't know that story, but it's a theme that plays out in this book. That yeah, that's where philosophers are all in baths and running around in robes. Yeah, I don't get that, but the brilliance of the characters, the the way, you know, the politics between different countries and the Phoebians and Omnians, how they sort of interact with each other, and that's our history, isn't it? And it's still nowadays. It's this difference in understanding, or unwilling to understand, for, you know, we could have a world of everything, but instead we just focus on these little things, these little differences, and create indifference for ourselves, I suppose, create trouble for ourselves, create drama for ourselves, and it profits a few and it doesn't profit all of us, you know. And that's the thing about this, you know, sending soldiers to war because of what one man says a god thinks is bizarre. It's a bizarre part of our history. But yeah, Terry really pokes fun at that, really opens that up and for examination, and you know, have a look at this side of our ancient history, our, you know, pre-ancient history, our modern history, and our modern times. This is who we are as humans. And I think we really need to get better at that, and that's what these books sort of do. You know, they point that way forward. And then watching, you know, one of the philosophers is a bit of an inventor and a bit of an engineer, wanting to do something so he can build things, but watching them twist, you know, how things built for good purposes can be twisted into weapons of war, and that. And it's all in this book. Crazy ideas, and really examination of how we view our gods and our humanity and, you know, other people in a time in the world now when things are really crazy. This is a good read for, I think, everybody to, you know, just to sit back, reflect, and examine who we are as people in a quirky and fun way that only Terry Pratchett could do. You know, because that's the thing. If someone else tried to write this book, it'd be all preachy and all messagey, but it's the way he does it. It's subtle, it's fun, and it makes you think, and that's what books are for. Like I said, this is a brilliant book, definitely up there with some of his great works. And I mean, Terry Pratchett, I've said it so many times, they are all great books, and I'm going to continue saying it as I continue to do these book reviews. Fantastic book. Brilliant, brilliant read. Small Gods, book 13 of the Discworld, Terry Pratchett. Absolutely love this one. And yeah, happy reading. Subscribe and follow for more.